Welcome back to the Mid-Year Mitch YouTube channel. Today's episode, we're building a body cart for the 68 Corvette. We pulled the body off in the last video, and now it's time to make a cart so we can have a safe place to store the car while we get the chassis ready for its restoration. So be sure to stick around. I apologize I didn't have a video last week. I wanted to make the video on the body cart, but I had some GoPro issues and everything I recorded that week didn't have audio, so I'm going back and filtering in audio to this video. So I apologize if some things aren't as streamlined as they normally are, but we'll try to make do with the footage that we have. I'll do a quick breakdown of the design concept for this cart. So I started with a drawing of a C3 Corvette chassis here, and it has the number 1, 2, 3, 4 body mount locations. And if you look at this, they're all obviously at a different index this direction. They're also at a different distance from the center of the chassis out. This one is the closest inboard. These two are also at different distances, and so is the rear body mount. So each one is different. So to combat that, I just designed a simple square or rectangular perimeter frame where I will mount the first and last body mount inboard on that rail, and I have it centered about the center of these stanchions, and then the middle body mounts will just fall in place, and I'll have to recess those into the main rail a little bit. And to further illustrate that, I have just a rough side drawing here of the rear stanchion. So this will be in the rear tub. This will be the number 3, number 1, and core support mounts. And then I have my big casters here. So I have big 3x2 box tubing, and I use it in the correct orientation where it's nice and strong. I also have some big casters because I like big casters. I don't know why people use such dinky ones all the time, but I used 8-inch casters, which give me 9 inches of ground clearance. That way we can roll this thing outside, we won't get stuck on pebbles, and it also makes it a lot easier to push around and move around. So that's the whole concept. And then I have these stanchions here, which are made out of 2x2 box tubing. The whole cart's gonna be welded together. But first, let's start off by making this nice little perimeter frame here, getting it all mocked up square, and then we'll start getting our stanchions in place and figuring out how to secure the body to the cart. I cut out all the pieces for the perimeter frame, welded that together, and I cut out all the pieces for my stanchions. Now I designed this cart in a way that I have very minimal waste, and that's definitely key whenever you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your project. You can see over here, this is all the waste that I have left from the project. These are just the few scraps. Whenever I spec'd out the material, I made sure that I ordered the correct amount and I had the least amount of cutting and welding to do, and this is what we ended up with here. So now I need to position all of these stanchions in their proper position, starting with the front and back ones. So I have all my stanchions tacked in place, and I measured them out properly, and then the middle 4 stanchions actually had to be recessed into the chassis a little bit because they're all at different widths. So I took about, I believe, 1/2 inch out of each one on the number 1 body mount, and then the number 3 body mount, I believe I took out 1.5 inches to suck them into the frame rail and I could have just cut them off clean at the bottom, but I wanted to leave a little bit of extra material so that way I could get a nice big weld the whole way around the stanchion, just to make sure the body didn't move. And then to secure the body, I took some big washers and some large nuts, and I welded the nut onto the washer, and I will set the washer down on the stanchion, fully weld that on, so that way I can actually bolt the body down. I'm gonna do that at the number 1 and the number 3 body mount position. The core support can just sit in place because it has cage nuts in the core support, and the same for the rear body mount. They can just sit in place and they'll do just fine. I just wanna make sure the bird cage is secure, so if we do move this thing around, it doesn't walk around on us or potentially fall off. So I have the body back on its body cart, and I have the garage put back to normal, and all the parts are underneath the body cart, which is another plus of having a nice body cart. But to mount the body, I started off with the number 3 mount. That was the easiest one to access, and I started the bolts into that one. Then I lowered the front down, and I mounted it on the number 1 body mount. And then I had to manipulate the core support mounts to get those to line up. And then I just started to weld everything in solid, and then I bolted the body down to the body cart to make sure that thing's not going anywhere. I'm not a professional welder, but I think some of these things turned out pretty nice. And now, you know, there's hundreds of ways that you could design this body cart. You don't have to do what I did. You can obviously use this for inspiration. There are plenty of modular ways to do this, that you can make each of these mounting points adjustable. You can make the whole cart collapse and come apart. I decided to make this thing fully solid, 1, because I hate drilling holes, but 2, it was a lot faster, and number 3, I wanted it to be strong. So sometimes, not always, but sometimes whenever you make things modular and make them adjustable, you do sacrifice some of the rigidity and some of the strength. Now, with this being a convertible, I wanted to make sure that we really supported the body and the rear tub properly, and C3s have a very long nose that can have some flex, so I wanted to make sure we supported that properly. I didn't want to make it adjustable so I could fit a C2 later, and then it would bite me down the road. But going off of that, this cart will only be used for this body. Once I'm done with it, I'll cut these stanchions off, and the actual perimeter frame itself will fit a C2. I'll just modify it and make it fit a C2 bird cage and rear floor, and it'll be just fine. So the cart's nice and solid. I highly, highly, highly recommend you use big casters. I see a lot of people design and build carts where they use dinky ones that looks like they got it off of an IKEA TV stand. Why would you do that? Just get big casters. You can get locking ones. You can get ones that lock in the swivel direction. I just went for cheap ones. I got a set of 4 for like $45. And the beauty with these is that, you know, every little pebble won't stop your wheel, but also you can roll it outside, and we have a little step on our concrete pad, so we can roll this thing outside, wash it off, do whatever we have to do, move stuff around in the shop, and we can get it back in place. Also, they push really easy whenever you have a nice big caster. So I recommend that. It also means that you can get a higher ride height of your body without having to have really tall stands, which I like because, you know, from the ground to this is 9 inches plus 3. So, you know, you're already a foot off the ground right here. So you don't need to have, you know, 4 foot tall legs to get the body up high. I didn't want the body super high, but I wanted it high enough that we can get underneath it. We can clean it. We can do any repairs that we have to do, and we can store all kinds of goodies underneath it. So overall, project was a success. Whenever I designed the cart, I tried to minimize the amounts of scrap that I had. This is all the extra metal I have. I just use these pieces of angle iron to jig up the cart, but these are all the extra pieces I have. Very little, and these are the pieces that I cut off of the stanchions so I could kind of French them in to the cart. But overall, it was a good design. I sat there and I took my time to make sure that I got almost the exact amount of steel that I had. It was the cheapest way to ship it, cheapest way to get it here, least amount of welding and cutting, and that sped up the process. But that's gonna do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I got a lot of work to do, so I'll catch you guys later.